The janitor knelt on the hallway floor in his worn gray uniform, his hands moving through the air in careful, practiced signs. The little girl, 7 years old, pink coat, one hearing aid, looked up at him and smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in 3 weeks. Nobody in the building knew Ray Holloway could do this. Nobody knew a lot of things about Ray Holloway. But that was about to change. Down the corridor, a woman in a charcoal blazer stood completely still. Dr. Carolyn Voss had been superintendent of this district for exactly 11 days. She had seen a lot of things in her career. She had never seen anything like this. Ray didn't notice her. His eyes were only on the child. His hands moved again. Slow, deliberate, steady. The girl's fingers answered. Dr. Voss pressed her manila folders tighter against her chest and did not move. The fluorescent light above her flickered once, twice, then held. The hallway smelled like industrial floor cleaner and something fainter underneath. Cafeteria pizza grease that never fully left the air, even at 9 o'clock at night. She watched a janitor, a man whose name she hadn't known an hour ago, do what an entire school system had failed to do in 3 weeks. He was talking to the child no one had seen. But that's not where this story starts. Not even close. Before we get back to that hallway, tell us in the comments where you're watching from tonight. And if you're new here, subscribe now. Because what happens next in this story is something you won't want to miss. Let's go back. All the way back to a Tuesday evening that looked, on the surface, like every other Tuesday evening Ray Holloway had lived through for the past 4 years. Back to a parking lot. A 2009 Honda Civic with a cracked left mirror. A man who arrived at 6:47 p.m. because he always arrived at 6:47 p.m. A man who had learned, the hard way, that punctuality was the one thing left that was fully his. He sat in the car for a moment before getting out. The engine ticked as it cooled. Through the cracked mirror, the school building reflected back at him. Red brick, lit windows on the second floor, the flag out front barely moving in the cold October air. Ray looked at it the way a person looks at something that once belonged to them. Then he picked up his thermos, got out of the car, and went to work. He had a whole building to clean. He always did. And somewhere inside that building, in a supply closet at the end of the 3rd grade hallway, a small girl in a star-patched backpack was already waiting, though she didn't know yet that anyone was coming. Neither did he. Some things find each other anyway. Ray Holloway changed into his gray uniform in the supply room at 6:51 p.m., the same way he had every Tuesday and Thursday for 4 years. The name stitched above the breast pocket, Ray, in red thread, had faded to a dull pink. The second button from the top was missing. The fun is just beginning. Tell us what city you're from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching from where? Like and subscribe to the channel. More to come. Tell us in the comments who's from which country, and give us a like and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Tell us where you are now. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us where you're watching from. Give the video a like and hit the subscribe button. The climax is near. Share where you're from, like, and be sure to subscribe. Events are unfolding rapidly. Write your city in the chat, give it a like, and subscribe so you don't get lost. The juiciest part is yet to come. Let's get started. Get to know each other. Where are you from? Like and subscribe right now. The suspense is building. Tell us where you're watching this episode from and reward us with a like and a subscribe. The excitement is running high. Tell us what city you're from now. Give us a big like and subscribe to the channel. A safety pin held the gap closed. He had told himself he'd replace the button for 3 months running. He never did. He made instant coffee in a paper cup from the small electric kettle kept on the shelf above the mop sink. No sugar. He'd stopped buying sugar in February when the price of everything went up and his hours didn't. He earned $14.20 an hour. He sent $200 a month to his mother in Dayton. His apartment had one window that faced a brick wall. He drank the coffee standing up and looked at the custodial schedule pinned to the corkboard. Tuesday, East Wing floors, gymnasium, all third-grade hallway wastebaskets, the same as last Tuesday, the same as the Tuesday before that. He picked up his mop and started walking. The school at night was a different place than the school during the day. Quieter, more honest. The fluorescent lights hummed at a low, steady pitch, and the linoleum floors reflected the light in long, pale strips. The smell of industrial cleaner mixed with something older, chalk dust and old carpet, and the ghost of 1,000 cafeteria lunches. Ray moved through it like he was part of the building. He passed room 7 just as Ms. Pearson stepped out with her coat over her arm and a stack of papers under her elbow. She nearly walked into him. Quote, 0, quote. She glanced at the mop. Quote, 1, quote. Ray nodded once. She was already walking toward the exit. No, please. No, thank you. No eye contact. He watched her go. Then he turned back to the hallway and kept moving. He had practiced not reacting for 4 years. He was very good at it by now. He had learned that invisibility was a kind of armor. He had also learned that armor gets heavy, that there is a particular weight to being looked through, day after day, by people who once called you colleague. He hadn't always pushed a mop through these hallways. He'd once stood at the front of a classroom 12 steps from where he was standing now. 3rd grade, room 14. 22 students who called him Mr. Holloway and meant it like it was something. He didn't let himself think about that often. He stopped at the wastebasket outside room 9, emptied it into his cart, and moved on. At the far end of the hallway, the door to the supply closet was slightly open. Just a crack. Just enough that the light from the hallway caught the edge of the metal shelving inside. Ray almost walked past it. He'd emptied that closet's bin an hour ago. He'd left the door closed. He stopped, listened. The hum of the lights, the distant clank of the heating system, and then something else. The smallest sound. Barely there, like someone trying very hard not to breathe. Ray pushed the supply closet door open slowly. The hanging light bulb was off. The only light came from the hallway behind him, falling in a pale rectangle across the floor. Metal shelving on both sides, paper towel rolls, bottles of cleaner, a folded custodial map on a hook. Everything exactly where it should be, except for the small girl sitting on an overturned bucket in the back corner. She had her knees pulled to her chest and her arms wrapped around them. Pink coat. Broken zipper held shut with a hair tie. A backpack covered in iron-on star patches sat on the floor beside her, like a small, faithful dog. She had one hearing aid, pale beige, curled behind her left ear. She looked at Ray. She did not make a sound. Ray stayed in the doorway. He didn't step forward. He didn't reach for his radio. He crouched down slowly, bringing himself to her level, and he looked at her the way you look at something that might startle. Quote 2, he said quietly. Quote 3. The girl's eyes were steady. She wasn't panicked. She was watchful. There was a difference, and Ray understood it immediately. This was a child who had learned to be very careful about who she trusted. She didn't respond to his voice. He tried again, a little louder. Are you lost? Nothing. Her eyes tracked his mouth, then moved to his hands, then back to his face. Ray went still. He'd had a student once, 9 years ago, 3rd grade, a boy named Marcus, who was profoundly deaf. Ray had spent a summer learning basic ASL, so Marcus wouldn't spend a year watching everyone else talk around him. Marcus was in high school somewhere now, probably taller than Ray. The signs had stayed, stored somewhere quiet in Ray's memory, like tools in a drawer he hadn't opened in years. He raised one hand. Slowly, carefully, he signed, "Are you okay?" The girl's eyes went wide, not with fear, with something closer to recognition, the look of someone who has been in a room full of people speaking a language she doesn't know, and suddenly hears one word she understands. She stared at his hands. Then her own fingers moved, small, uncertain, like she wasn't sure he'd be able to read her. But Ray could. Not safe outside. 3 words. That was all. But they landed in Ray's chest like something heavy set down on a table. He looked at her backpack, at the drawing on the front pocket in black marker, a sun with uneven rays, the way kids draw them, each spike a different length. At her left sneaker, where someone, her, probably, had drawn another small sun on the toe. She made suns on everything she owned, and she was sitting alone in a dark supply closet because something outside scared her enough to stay. Ray sat down on the floor, not looming over her, not blocking the door. He signed, "My name is Ray. I work here." She watched his hands. Then, slowly, she signed back. "I know. I've seen you before. You never saw me." He signed. Her expression shifted, something small and unreadable. "I always see you," she signed. "You're the one who fixes the broken chairs." Her name was Lily. She told him in signs, fingers spelling it out letter by letter, watching his face to make sure he followed. He did. He signed her name back to her, and she gave a small, satisfied nod. The nod of someone who has had to repeat herself too many times to too many people who weren't really listening. Ray pulled the hanging light bulb cord. Warm yellow light filled the closet. He reached into his cart and found his dinner, a turkey sandwich on white bread, Ziploc bag, same as every Tuesday. He held it out toward her. She looked at it, then at him. "It's just a sandwich," he said, and signed it at the same time, clumsy but clear. Lily took it. She ate quickly, methodically, the way people eat when they're genuinely hungry, rather than just filling time. She hadn't eaten since lunch. He could tell. Ray sat on the floor across from her, his back against the shelving, and ate the other half himself. The cleaner smell was strong in the small space, that sharp industrial pine that never quite smelled like anything found in nature. "How long have you been coming here?" he signed. Lily held up 3 fingers. Then she pointed to herself, then to the floor, then held up 2 fingers and moved them in an alternating walking motion. Tuesdays and Thursdays. 3 weeks. 6 times. And nobody had noticed. Ray's jaw tightened. He kept his face neutral. "Why here?" He signed. She thought about it. Then she signed, "It's quiet." Nobody comes. A pause. Her hands moved again, slower. "I can hear better when it's quiet." Ray looked at the hearing aid behind her ear. It was older, the casing slightly yellowed, a small crack along the back edge held together with what looked like a piece of clear tape. "Does your teacher know about your hearing?" He signed. Lily's expression flickered. She gave a half shrug that carried the weight of someone who had stopped expecting things from a particular system. There was supposed to be someone. She signed. "Someone to help," they said. She paused. Nobody came. Ray sat with that for a moment. Outside in the hallway, the fluorescent lights hummed their steady, indifferent hum. Somewhere in the east wing, a door swung shut on its own, the heating system expanding the building's bones the way it always did at night. "You're not going to make me go out there, are you?" Lily signed. Her eyes were steady, but her hands had gone very still in her lap. Ray shook his head. Nobody's making you do anything tonight." She relaxed. Not completely, but enough. "I didn't tell anyone," she signed after a moment, "about coming here." "I know," Ray signed. "I didn't tell because—" She paused, searching for the right sign, then settled for speaking the word out loud for the first time, her voice small and slightly flat in the way of children who can't fully hear their own speech. "Nobody was looking at me anyway." Ray didn't move. The light bulb swayed almost imperceptibly above them. He had said the same thing to himself, in different words, every day for 4 years. The heels came first. Sharp, deliberate clicks on the linoleum, moving fast from the direction of the main office. Ray heard them from inside the closet and got to his feet. Lily heard them too, or felt the vibration, more likely. And her whole body went rigid, the sandwich forgotten in her hand. Ray stepped into the hallway. Dr. Caroline Voss stopped walking. She was younger than he'd expected from a superintendent, maybe early 40s, dark blazer, a stack of manila folders pressed against her side. Her hair was pulled back tight. She looked like someone who had been working since 7 in the morning and intended to keep going until the building made her stop. She looked at Ray. She looked past him at Lily, visible through the open closet door. Something moved across her face, a fast, instinctive calculation. Her eyes went from the child to the man in the gray uniform, and Ray saw exactly what she was thinking. He'd seen that look before, on people encountering an unexpected combination of elements they weren't sure how to read. He held up one hand. "She's been here since 3:30. She wouldn't go outside. I was about to call the front desk." Dr. Voss didn't move. Voss stepped forward, looking around Ray to see Lily more clearly. Lily looked back at her. Didn't hide, didn't wave. Just watched. The same careful watchfulness she turned on Ray an hour ago. "Sweetheart," Voss said, keeping her voice even, "can you tell me your name?" Lily didn't respond. Voss looked at Ray. Ray said quietly, ___quote _15___. He stopped, raised his hands instead, signed to Lily. "This woman is safe. She works here. Important job." Lily studied Dr. Voss for a long moment. Then she signed back, directed at Ray. "Is she going to make me go outside?" Ray shook his head, signed, "No." Voss had gone completely still. Her manila folders dropped to her side, quote 16, quote 17, quote 18. It wasn't a question. It wasn't quite an insult. But it sat in the air between them with an uncomfortable weight. Ray said. Voss looked at Lily again, at the cracked hearing aid, at the taped zipper on the pink coat, at the backpack with its iron-on stars sitting faithfully beside the bucket. Ray said nothing. That wasn't his question to answer. But Voss was already thinking past him. He could see it, something sharpening behind her eyes, the look of a person who has just noticed a thread and is deciding whether to pull it. "Why didn't anyone know this child was still in the building?" she said. Not to Ray, not quite to herself, to the hallway, to the institution around her. She pulled out her phone, dialed, waited. "This is Dr. Voss. I need someone to pull the support services enrollment list for this building tonight." A pause. "All of it. Every flag, every referral. I'll be in the office." She hung up, looked at Ray. "Don't go anywhere." Lily's aunt arrived at 9:47, a small woman in a fleece jacket, car keys still in her hand, eyes red from crying before she even reached the building. She pulled Lily into her arms in the front entryway and held on for a long time. And Lily let her star-patched backpack still strapped to both shoulders, her face pressed into the fleece. Ray watched from the hallway entrance. Then he went back to his cart, He had floors to finish. Dr. Voss found him 20 minutes later in the records room off the main office, a narrow space with metal filing cabinets and a single overhead light that buzzed like a trapped insect. She had a folder open on the table and was standing very still, reading. She looked up when Ray appeared in the doorway with his wastebasket. Quote, 27, quote, she said. Quote, 28, quote, Ray set the wastebasket down. He didn't sit. There were no chairs for custodians in the records room. Just the one rolling chair Voss was standing behind. She turned the folder toward him. Lily's support services referral, filed by her classroom teacher 7 weeks ago, flagged for a hearing assessment and mandated in-school support. She tapped the page. Signed, dated, submitted correctly. Ray looked at the paper. It was rerouted through the vice principal's office for budget authorization, Voss continued. Standard process. Marsh received it. She paused. 3 weeks ago. Ray said nothing. No response was ever sent. No services were ever assigned. Her file was moved to a secondary cabinet and marked pending. Voss closed the folder. A 7-year-old child with documented hearing loss has been sitting in a classroom for 7 weeks without the support she's legally entitled to. And for 3 of those weeks, she's been hiding in a supply closet twice a week because nobody made her feel safe enough to go home. The buzzing light filled the silence between them. How long has Marsh been vice principal? Ray asked. 6 years. Voss looked at him steadily. Why? Ray picked up the wastebasket. Just asking. Ray. Her voice was quiet but precise, the kind of quiet that means stop. Is there something you want to tell me? He looked at the filing cabinets, 4 of them, floor to ceiling, packed with the accumulated paper weight of this institution's decisions. He had cleaned this room for 4 years. He had never opened a single drawer. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 42, underscore, underscore, he said. Voss studied him for a moment. Then she opened the folder again and wrote something on a notepad beside it. She turned the notepad toward him so he could read it. It said, pull every support services referral, Marsh, 6 years. Quote, 43, she said. Quote, 44. Ray looked at the notepad, then at her. Quote, 45, he said. Quote, 46. She held his gaze. Quote, 47. The buzzing light flickered once, held. Ray set down the wastebasket slowly and pulled the nearest filing cabinet open. Quote, 48, he said. Quote, 49. They worked for 40 minutes. Ray pulled folders. Voss read them. The records room smelled like old paper and dust and the faint chemical sweetness of aging ink, the smell of a system that had been filing things away for a long time without anyone checking what was being filed. 7 referrals, 7 students flagged for support services over 6 years, all routed through Marsh's office for authorization, all marked pending, none ever fulfilled. Voss set the last folder down on the growing stack. Her coffee, brought from the office, now stone cold, sat untouched beside her elbow. 7 children, she said quietly. Ray didn't answer. He was looking at a folder he'd just pulled, holding it in a way that had changed. Both hands, very still, the way you hold something when you're trying to decide whether to keep holding it. Voss noticed. Underscore, underscore, quote underscore, 51, underscore, underscore. He didn't hand it over immediately. He looked at the tab. Then he set it on the table in front of her without a word. The tab read, Holloway, Raymond T. Personnel Action. Voss opened it. Ray moved to the other side of the room and stood with his back to the filing cabinets, arms crossed. The buzzing light above them felt louder in the silence. He heard the pages turn, once, twice. This is your file, Voss said. Yes. It says you were removed from classroom instruction 4 years ago. A pause. More pages. For academic misconduct, specifically, falsifying student grade records. That's what it says. Voss looked up. Is it true? Ray's jaw was tight. Quote, 58. Another pause. She read further. Her expression didn't change much, but her hand moved to the edge of the folder and gripped it slightly harder. The written report was filed by Gerald Marsh, she said. Yes. He claimed he discovered discrepancies in your gradebook and conducted an internal review. He conducted it alone, Ray said. No second review, no outside verification. Just his report and a school board that didn't want to deal with a drawn-out dispute. Voss turned another page. Your students' standardized assessment scores for that year were among the highest in the district. I know. That doesn't suggest grade manipulation. That suggests the grades were accurate. Ray said nothing. He had said all of this once, 4 years ago, to a board that was already leaning toward the door. He had learned that saying a true thing to people who don't want to hear it is a particular kind of exhaustion. Voss closed the folder. She looked at him across the narrow room. A woman, 11 days into a job, holding a folder that represented 4 years of a man's life reduced to a single accusation. Marsh's nephew, she said slowly, was hired as a third-grade teacher the following September. She glanced at the folder. Room 14. Everything stopped. Ray's room. Voss set the folder precisely on top of the stack with the 7 children's referrals. She aligned the edges carefully, deliberately, the way someone does when they need a moment to decide what kind of person they're going to be. Then she picked up her phone and dialed. Quote 70. Quote, she said. Quote 71. Quote, Ray finished his shift at 11:15. He mopped the east wing, restocked the paper towels in the second-floor bathrooms, and replaced a flickering tube in the hallway outside the gymnasium. He did every item on the list. He did them in order. It was the only way he knew to get through a night like this one. The building was quiet by the time he changed back into his street clothes in the supply room. Jeans, gray Henley, the jacket with the broken zipper on the left pocket that he'd been meaning to fix for 2 winters. He sat on the bench for a moment before standing up. The room smelled like floor cleaner and the ghost of his instant coffee from 5 hours ago. He looked at the gray uniform hanging on its hook, the faded red stitching, the safety pin where the button should be. He thought about room 14, about a nephew who had walked into it without earning a single day there. He picked up his bag and left. Voss was waiting in the hallway near the main entrance, her blazer still on, the stack of folders under her arm. She looked like someone who had not considered going home. I want you to be present tomorrow, she said. When I speak with Marsh. Ray stopped walking. That's not my place. I'm making it your place. Dr. Voss. He kept his voice even. I've been invisible in this building for 4 years. I've gotten good at it. Whatever you found in those files, that's your process, not mine. Voss looked at him steadily. Gerald Marsh is going to walk into my office tomorrow morning expecting a routine check-in. He doesn't know what I found tonight. He's going to be calm, polished. He's going to use words like misunderstanding and miscommunication. She paused. I want someone in that room who knows exactly what those words are covering. Ray said nothing. You don't have to speak, Voss said. You just have to be there. The fluorescent light above the entrance hummed. Outside, through the glass doors, the parking lot was empty except for his Civic and Voss's dark sedan. The cracked left mirror caught the overhead light and fractured it into small pieces. Ray said. He looked at the doors. Her voice didn't rise. It sharpened. I also know that 7 children in this district didn't get services they were legally owed, and I know that the man who stopped those services from reaching them also ended a teacher's career to get his nephew a classroom. She shifted the folders under her arm. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a pattern, and patterns are something I know how to document. Ray looked at her for a long moment. The hum of the building around them. The cold October dark pressing against the glass. "What time?" he said. 8 o'clock. He nodded once, pushed through the door into the parking lot. The cold hit him clean and sharp. He stopped beside his car and stood there for a moment, his breath showing white in the night air. 8 o'clock. For the first time in 4 years, he had somewhere to be before 6:47 p.m. Gerald Marsh arrived at 8 o'clock in a pressed shirt and a confident tie. Burgundy, small pattern, the kind of tie that says, "I am not concerned about this meeting." He smiled when he saw Voss. He did not smile when he saw Ray standing in the corner. "Ray?" His voice was perfectly measured. "I didn't know you'd be joining us." Ray said nothing. "Sit down, Gerald," Voss said. Marsh sat. He set his hands flat on the table, relaxed, open, a man with nothing to hide. The morning light came through the office blinds in pale strips across the folder sitting between them. He glanced at it once. His expression didn't change. Marsh said. Voss said. Marsh stopped. Voss opened it and turned it toward him. Quote, 99. Quote. Marsh looked at the pages. Something shifted behind his eyes, fast, almost imperceptible. His hand stayed flat on the table. Quote, 100, quote, he said. Quote, 101, quote, 102, quote. Voss said, quote, 103, quote, silence. The ventilation system hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hallway, a classroom door opened and closed. The ordinary sounds of a school morning, Marsh said. Voss's voice didn't waver. Marsh stood up. His chair scraped back hard against the floor. Voss said. Ray looked at him then, directly. For the first time in 4 years, he didn't look away. You gave your nephew a classroom, Ray said. His voice was quiet, completely steady. That's what you protected. Marsh's jaw tightened. He picked up his jacket from the chair back, folded it over his arm with deliberate care. He walked to the door. He stopped with his hand on the frame. Quote, 112, he said. To Voss, not to Ray. Then he left. The sound of his footsteps moved down the hallway and faded. Voss sat back in her chair and let out a slow, controlled breath. The folder of 7 children sat open on the table between them, the morning light falling across the pages. Ray looked at his hands, the hands that had mopped these floors for 4 years, the hands that had signed to Lily in a dark closet 2 nights ago. They were steady. They had always been steady when it mattered. 6 months later, room 14 smelled like chalk dust and morning light, and the particular warmth of 22 children who had just come in from the cold. Ray stood at the front of it. His name was on the door again. Mr. Holloway, printed on a small laminated card in the school's standard font. Nothing special, exactly the same as every other teacher's nameplate in the building. He had stood in the hallway on his first morning back and looked at it for a long time before walking in. The license reinstatement had taken 83 days. Dr. Voss had told him 90. She had been wrong by a week, and when she told him, she almost smiled. Ray had said, she replied. Gerald Marsh had resigned before the district review concluded. He had sent a brief letter citing personal reasons. The 7 student files had been referred to the district's compliance office. Every child who could still be reached had been connected with the services they were owed. It was late. It was not nothing. Ray had a new student this year. A boy named Daniel, 8 years old, moderate hearing loss in both ears, who wore 2 hearing aids and had a habit of tapping his pencil against his desk in a fast, private rhythm when he was thinking hard. There was an ASL interpreter now, hired after Voss restructured the support services budget in her second month. Her name was Miss Tran. She sat in the 3rd chair from the left and translated everything, including Ray's jokes, which Daniel apparently found funnier in sign than in speech. Ms. Tran told Ray after class one afternoon, gathering her bag. Ray looked over at Daniel, still at his desk, drawing something in the margin of his notebook. Ms. Tran signed it. Daniel looked up. "Signed back," she said. Ray was still smiling about it when he locked up the classroom that evening. Dr. Voss still stopped by room 14 once a week, officially to observe. She always sat in the back, took a few notes, and left without much comment. Once, on her way out, she paused at the door. Quote, 120, quote, she said. Quote, 121, quote. She thought about it. Quote, 122, quote. She left before he could answer. Lily was in 2nd grade now, 1 hallway over. She had a proper hearing assessment, a support plan, and a new hearing aid. Both sides, pale blue, which she had chosen herself from a catalog. On Tuesdays sometimes, she appeared at the window of room 14 during recess, her star-patched backpack on her shoulders, and waved through the glass. Ray always waved back. One Tuesday, she held up a drawing against the window. A man and a small girl, stick figures, standing in a hallway. A light bulb above them, drawn with careful yellow rays. Every ray exactly the same length. Ray drove home that evening in the 2009 Civic. The left mirror was new, replaced 3 months ago, a small repair, $40. He had noticed it every morning since. Some things, once fixed, stay fixed, and sometimes that is enough to change everything. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments. Have you ever been seen by someone when you thought you'd become invisible? Subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And next time, we'll tell you about a school librarian who discovered a secret one of her students had been keeping hidden inside a returned library book for 6 months. He had carried the weight of invisibility for 4 years, and the morning he walked back into room 14, he finally set it down.